Excellent. Okay, well, hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to AMS Webinars or AMS Weather Band's latest webinar, Breezy versus the Bachelor, the March 2 to 3, 2020 tornado outbreak with Danielle Breezy and moderated by Melissa Griffin. Before we begin, I would like to address some of the guidelines for our webinar today. If you have questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little button to the left of the chat. Questions for speakers submitted through the chat will not be considered. So we want to make sure all of the questions are consolidated in one spot so we can keep track of all of them. We will have some specific time for questions from the audience after the presentation, or they may be addressed during the course of the presentation, depending upon how things flow. Now I'd like to introduce today's moderator. So thank you, Melissa, for joining us today. Today's moderator, Melissa Griffin, currently serves as the Assistant State Climatologist at the South Carolina State Climatology Office. Melissa received a degree in meteorology from Florida State University and has worked in the weather and climate enterprise for the past 2 decades. Melissa is also involved in various weather-related outreach and education initiatives, including the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. Melissa, thank you very much again, and the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Gideon. I appreciate the introduction. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're looking forward to having a great time talking to Danielle. And it is my pleasure to actually introduce Danielle Breezy. She joined News 2 as the chief meteorologist in July of 2016. And you may occasionally see her filling in for Good Morning America and World News Tonight. Her passion for weather started when she was a child, as she grew up outside of Philadelphia and saw everything from blizzards and ice storms and even tornadoes. That love actually grew in the 8th grade when a local meteorologist came to her school and got to talk to her, and she knew she wanted to be a meteorologist. And so she pursued that dream, studying atmospheric science at Cornell University, and I'm going to say it for her, go Big Red. And after that, she stopped in places like Salisbury, Maryland, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Boston, before coming to Nashville. She is a certified broadcast meteorologist, which is the highest seal a meteorologist can have, and she currently serves as the chair of the American Meteorological Society Board for Broadcast. In 2001, she was honored by the AMS with the June Beacon Breezy Award for broadcast meteorology for her life-saving work covering the outbreak she's actually going to talk about today, and was also named one of Nashville's Business Journal's 40 Under 40 in 2020. In her spare time, she loves to give back. She donates her time and her effort to multiple charities across the Nashville area: St. Jude, American Lung Association, Cancer Association, Red Cross, Humane Society. She also loves visiting school and inspiring children to pursue STEM education careers. On a personal note, if you're from the Nashville area, she is married to Joe Breezy, who does afternoons on Hot 106.7 and is a brand manager. So Danielle, thank you again for taking time out of your hectic and busy schedule, being chief meteorologist, to talk to us today. And with that, I'll give the floor to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Melissa, for the introduction. And yes, for anybody that may have been, I believe it was a broadcast conference for American Meteorological Society in 2021, 2022, I can't remember now exactly the year. I actually did this presentation, so you may be seeing it again. That being said, I do believe that the March 2nd and 3rd, 2020 tornadoes is one of the biggest events I think I've ever covered in my entire life. I think it is one of the most impactful events, and you'll see some of the statistics afterwards from this for Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky. And I think there was a lot of learning and growing from this event that not only the meteorologists that were broadcasting during this event had to deal with, but also all of our viewers that watch us and watch us for our safety, but also watch our stations for the programming. So Breezy versus the Bachelor. Yes, I even used roses in this because I thought it was pretty funny. That being said, we had this severe weather setup coming in for a Monday night. And if you're familiar with ABC programming, this was when The Bachelor was airing. And for any of you who like The Bachelor, because by the way, this is a season my husband and I actually watched together. So we liked it because it was Pilot Pete season. So people probably remember that one. I feel like that's the last one I actually ended up watching. But that being said, I knew something was potentially going to happen on a Monday. I didn't know the extent of how bad it was going to be, but that's what we're going to talk about, and just what happened through that event as we cut in for tornadoes on the ground and how people dealt with that. And you'll just see kind of what meteorologists that broadcast have to deal with behind the scenes while trying to provide life-saving information as we go. So just I want to give you guys a little bit of background to this event. And what's crazy is the Storm Prediction Center, so that's based out of Norman, Oklahoma. They're the folks that give us these outlooks. So for anyone that doesn't know that, that is coming from there, and they decide what areas are going to be under the threat for severe weather. So this was on a Sunday. And so we had a marginal risk, but notice that it was only really west of I-65. Nashville really wasn't even included in this just yet. But we were watching for ingredients, at least wind and heavy rain at the time they were kind of talking about. Hadn't really talked too much about tornadoes yet. But again, this was something that was done. And I'm, as I talk to you about this presentation, I'm going to show you it through social media, because I think social media that night was so crazy, intense, and then quite lovely on the backside of it all. So I'll just show you how we kind of set it up. And for meteorologists that are on here as well, one of the things I would tell you, and I would urge you as your teams to do, we talk about this all the time, but whoever my morning met is, whether it's my weekend morning or my weekday morning meteorologist, if we get a severe weather outlook that comes out, they put that on all of our Facebook pages, and they have it on Twitter, and we retweet and reshare it all, just so we get the information out as soon as possible and hit as many people as we can. So you see, we said this on Sunday, not really, not as concerning. Now on Monday morning, the first outlook came out, and you see that it kind of increased to a level 2 out of 5. So we had the yellow color from Nashville to Clarksville. Still though, not everyone was under the marginal risk. Still, like if you see the plateau, which if you guys know, Cookeville was actually one of the places hit the hardest with an EF4 tornado. So this is, Monday morning, my weekday morning Met's putting this out on all of our pages, but I do like what she also verbiage just said, share in all caps, kind of grabbing the viewer's attention, making sure you guys actually pay attention to us. And then we talked about the fact that, they're under a slight risk, have your phones charged, make sure you're able to get alerts tonight, because we're worried about this being an overnight threat. And then as this began to increase, the slight risk, this was in the afternoon, so this would have been the update around lunchtime. We were talking about how, the threat goes across the entire state now. So now things are getting dicey. And I remember this day very well, because in the morning hours, I actually had a school visit. So I was with a school in Murfreesboro. That same school remembers me because they were like, you came a year before on the anniversary. Like I always come around that same time to them. And they said, you were saying to us, be alert. I think tonight's going to be a night. And so, I came into work around, 12, 1 o'clock, got ready for it all. And then I put out this to all of our pages as well, the future tracker showing that around 1 a.m. Now, obviously you see not perfect accuracy, but pretty close to where this supercell actually lined up. And I believe this was the HRRR, one of our short-term models. And I said, please share and tag a friend. The timing's late at night, have your phone charged, the sound on, download our app, have a safety plan ready. And one of the other things we did too is we do a lot of Facebook Lives. And if you are a meteorologist that's broadcasting right now, I really urge you to do that. I'm sure a lot of you already do, but if you don't, definitely do that. That's one way where viewers can actually talk to you. And viewers, I know that you're on here. If you know me personally, you know how it is. We kind of go back and forth. You ask questions, you ask what the timing's like. And this is our way to kind of connect with you, not just on the TV screen, but behind the scenes. And so that was what we kind of did, out ahead of anything actually happening. And we kind of set this up during the early news broadcast, because nothing really happened, I don't think. Yes, nothing happened until really Bachelor time. So unfortunately, there was no severe weather during the 4, 5, and 6. We were setting it up. But the first tornado warning of the night came out, well, it was until 8 o'clock, but I believe it came in right at like the 7 o'clock, 7:15 hour, 7:15 time frame. So right as Pilot Pete's starting. And for the record, Pilot Pete episode, it was the women tell all. It's not like it was the final rose. It was the women tell all. I'm like, really? This isn't even that great of an episode, but okay. So we have this warning come up. And just so you guys know, in Middle Tennessee and Southern, we cover counties, not only in Middle Tennessee, but Southern Kentucky too. We actually cover 49 counties. And so each county needs to be addressed. And if we get a tornado warning, I want to make sure everybody knows this. First of all, the TV station doesn't issue the tornado warning. So the tornado warning is issued by the National Weather Service depending on which area it's from. Now, this one would have been out of Paducah. We also have a National Weather Service in Nashville that does a lot of Middle Tennessee. We have a National Weather Service in Huntsville that does a couple of the counties to the south. We have a National Weather Service in Louisville that does some of our counties, and then National Weather Service in Memphis. So we have 5 different government agencies that really provide tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings for our area. So just so you guys know that, and they kind of have to coordinate together, and they do a good job of doing all of that. So this one was from Paducah. And so we went on the air, and you can kind of see, I don't know if you can tell on this radar, but there was definitely a hook forming. Okay. So, when I went back to do this presentation, I went back and looked at some of the comments and just got some screen grabs. There's a lot of black marks on these where there's probably some bad words and some profanity. So warning you now. And I did cover a lot of people's names that they were being evil, but some people said like split the screen like you do in football. Oh my God, enough. For the love of God, stop talking. No one cares about tornadoes in another state. Put the Bachelor back on with some bad words in there. Y'all suck. If you guys are, if your folks are, them report from Kentucky, not Tennessee, go away is what somebody told me. They said, I hope you're getting some water now. You've been doing this for almost 2 hours. And this is right. People need to listen to you about the storms. The sky is falling. She goes, this right here is exactly why people don't need to listen to you, about storms. The sky is falling, henny penny, get a clue. So this is just as what's happening on my Facebook, which I'm not even looking at. This is what I look at later, but I'm getting phone call after phone call. My newsroom's having to intercept it. It's becoming wild where people are very not happy about this. Okay. And then unfortunately, these tornado warnings continue because there's a tornado literally on the ground. So as people are calling, I have to literally say, folks, you can keep calling in, but I'm going to stay on the coverage with this because there's now a confirmed tornado on the ground in Christian County. By the way, it ended up being an EF2 tornado, not a small one. And you can see so that was when it was going over Crofton. That's around 8:30. And then the last tornado, the warning of the night, I believe it moved into Logan County around 9:15. And then I think that cell finally wrapped up. But this is, of course, during the Bachelor, 7 to 9 o'clock is when all of this is happening. So, I would tell you that the phone calls came in, the emails came in, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram. Meteorologists, when you're in the middle of an event, don't look at these things. I'll tell you that much because I did not look at these. The only thing I can tell you I did look at, because all of a sudden I looked at my Instagram. I'm like, why do I have like 30 different stories in here? And I looked at one and it was somebody basically telling me to go, bad word myself, or they were going to kill my firstborn or kill my dog or kill my husband. It was pretty wild. Like I would tell you never to look at anything, just concentrate on what's going on. But that being said, when I went back to look at things, some of this stuff was not very, very nice. Somebody said, get off the TV, return to the Bachelor. Are you kidding? Stop it already. Come on. And then somebody said, enough, be quiet. Someone said, split the screens, not even near us. And then every time you say life and death, it makes you look more and more stupid. Have you even reported a tornado? If you're in Kentucky, you've seen a tornado, raise your hand. And then it's pretty interesting because all these comments were left, 7 to 9. If you guys remember this, and I'll talk about it more, the Nashville tornado itself didn't start till closer to midnight. And then happening through about 2, 3, 4 in the morning is when the big one came across the entire mid-state. So there's certain people that probably jump back on this. And somebody said people killed and you're worried about a stupid show. So people went back and forth. And sometimes you also have to don't worry about this as well. Kind of let the haters be haters, because some of your fan favorites will go after your haters for you. That's what I always say. So if there's trolls, there's also really nice people that will go after you, will go after your trolls for you. The nice comments, the not so kind comments continue on Twitter. I love some of these because I think they're actually pretty funny. Just out here trying to get wine drunk on The Bachelor, but over here chugging wine to Daniel Breezy and her tornado drills. And then somebody said, Breezy, get the heck off my TV. We're all missing the Bachelor and I want to punch you. And then somebody else said, Daniel Breezy, go away. I'm trying to watch The Bachelor. And then it was really nice because one of the actual bachelors that live in Nashville, Evan Bass, was really nice because he said, I feel bad for Daniel Breezy having to interrupt this show, but she has to do what she has to do, which is really nice. So it was nice to see some of the actual former people that were contestants on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette coming to my defense because they understood that this is like a life or death situation. And so, this is stuff that going through this didn't feel good when I actually had to go find this. And then Instagram was pretty rough too. The thing about Instagram, I didn't realize is if your page is public, they can go on your page and do whatever you want to do. And somebody said, oh my God, get off the TV already. We get it's a warning. We have cell phones. And then I commented back to this person because this person actually, believe it or not, is a famous person or semi-famous, I guess, a reality person. And I said, by FCC law, I'm supposed to go on for a tornado warning, stay where the threat is gone. A tornado touchdown in Christian County, no one was hurt. That's a win, especially at night when no one can see a tornado. Enjoy your night. And then somebody say, well, I just called the news station. She's on a weather warning until it's over. Here's the number, call her back. And then they say, you are literally terrible. You are, why do you like trolling people trying to enjoy a TV show to show your elementary warnings in a different state? So this is all these things that are happening. I mean, it's pretty evil. And so, it is what it is. There's a lot of nastiness that happens. You'll literally say it's not your Nash, shut your hole. I mean, some of these people were like really, really rough. I'm not going to lie. Looking back at this right now, as I even talked to you about this, kind of gives me a little PTSD about that night. Cause I just remember coming off the air after the 9 o'clock and being like, oh my God, I think everyone hates me in Tennessee. And I remember saying that, and I was working, I think that night with Davis Nolan, if I remember correctly. And we were both like, he's like, oh yeah, they're not happy. That phone was ringing off the hook, but it's something we have to do. And then the email also comments, someone said a rainstorm. This is what I love about viewers. No comprehension sometimes. A rainstorm in Kentucky, you're cutting out of a major rated show. There are no known tornado cells. Nothing happened in Missouri. She's dragging on and on, adding no. And then somebody said, get that, off the air, something bad. You know what that means. So anyway, all this stuff is happening. I'm getting ready to come down the air, and I'm knowing that Tennessee has had no storms yet. Seeing a cell developing out in West Tennessee, okay? Seeing it develop and knowing that that's the same air that Kentucky had that spawned tornadoes, knowing that that's probably going to happen. So I have to kind of come to it, slow down. Remember, don't worry about all the nastiness, get yourself together. Because I will tell you, there were some nice things that came out of this. And at the end of this, I'll truly tell you this, it went from me being the most hated woman in Tennessee to being a hero the next day, and I think all of us broadcast mets that did this were heroes afterwards, and all the people that went out and saved people's lives became heroes. You know what I mean? But somebody said, I'd appreciate if you wouldn't interrupt the Bachelor for a storm that's irrelevant to my area. Thank you. And then somebody else wrote a really nice thing, like, hey, Danielle, I know you're extremely busy tonight, severe weather, but I thought I'd pass this along. I saw the comments of some people making about a tornado warning in Crofton and Princeton. They were not very nice and not understanding. Y'all do a great job with your coverage. You had to cut into the Bachelor. And I know people are upset, but they have to understand. I support you 100%. And that's a really nice thing. And I will tell you this, if I tell you anything, when somebody says something nice to you, go back and respond to them. Like, as a meteorologist broadcasting, that is the way you win over your viewers and they become your friends. And I respond to all the nice ones. Now, some of the negative ones I probably left go, especially if they were evil. But if they were like semi-evil, you can also convert a troll into a friend very quickly, because sometimes people just want attention. So that being said, I do these Facebook, I do a Facebook Live because our tornado warnings drop. I don't want people to let their guard down. I'm really afraid that people are like, oh, it happened in Southern Kentucky. It's done for the night. I'm going to bed. So I get on Facebook Live. I get off the cut and I basically say, join me for a Facebook Live. So we do this. And as I do this Facebook Live, if you guys notice, one of the things my management had asked me to do is please let people know that the Bachelor will re-air at 12:06. We need to cut into the fact that people are very upset about this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, I will do that. And they're like, can you please put that statement out on all your platforms? And we put it out as a web article, which I'll show you in a bit. But that being said, I said to my manager, what happens if I don't believe it's going to happen? And they won't see it. They're like, well, it's okay, just do it. So I said, join me for an update on storms. By the way, the Bachelor will re-air at 12:06 on our station. Set your DVR. So at the same time, as I start talking about this, people realize that, there is actually a sellout in West Tennessee. And I'm saying, this is the one that I'm worried about, that as it comes across, something's going to happen. So people get involved, and I think people start to realize, something really bad could probably happen to us later at night. So, I put this cut in on to the Bachelor re-air 12:06. I put that on my Instagram, and I say, set your DVRs for Pilot Pete. By the way, we had a tornado touchdown. Thanks to our coverage, no one was hurt. I'm just doing my job. And a lot of people commented. We had a web article go out. And that's one way as a station group, you can obviously, if people are really that upset, that's a way to calm them down. You let them know where they can see it again. That being said, nowadays I'm like, you have DVR, you're going to see it tomorrow. It's on Hulu. But that being said, we did all of that. So then we go into our normal newscast. And as we go into our normal newscast, we get a tornado watch issued for part of our area. And then we talk about West Tennessee, that there's a severe storm that develops. I think it develops during the middle of the newscast, but no tornado warnings during it. I'm just saying, hey, I'm worried this will turn into a tornado warning. Well, sure enough, it does. And just so you guys know, Benton and Henry County, that's like our far western counties. That's actually technically in West Tennessee, but we cover them. That's one of the 49 counties. So that begins this supercell that develops, and it basically becomes one supercell that spawns multiple tornadoes. And it literally parallels, if you know anything about I-40, it cuts across Tennessee, totally across. This supercell literally stays just north of I-40 the entire ride. Okay. And spawns tornadoes that are, EF2 to EF3 to even EF4. And this night's really interesting because we talk about this to this day. Like Davis and I actually had a talk about it the other day when we were looking at Cookeville. We're like, how's this actually going to happen? The dew points were only in the 50s, but it actually held together enough to cause a huge tornado in Cookeville. So we get our first tornado. This is 11:45 at night. This is Benton, this is Henry counties. And then it continues. And basically this cell goes on and on and on and on. And notice now we're getting at 11:45. It's for Houston Humphreys, Dixon, Houston Humphreys. It's now 12:15. You see that hook kind of forming with it. Now in Dixon County, it looks like it loses its structure for a second. Well, it doesn't really technically lose its structure. What it's doing is it's recycling. So around 12:15, it goes from a tornado warning to a severe thunderstorm warning. So we say to folks, okay, we're going to, once that tornado warning drops, we're going to come off the air and then we'll come back on if there's a tornado warned storm. Well, we didn't even get to drop off the air because what happened was it was recycling. We were getting reports of golf ball to baseball size hail in Dixon. And then the next thing we know, boom, you've got the tornado warning over in Nashville. And this is where it got scary because we're on the air for it. And then somebody sees a power flash and sees a large wedge tornado in downtown Nashville on the ground. So this is where I was already very strong with this, but it was getting really strong at this point where I'm like, okay, now we're in the middle of downtown Nashville where people are asleep. It's going to, it's from 12:15 to 1 a.m. I need to be really aggressive. And so I really raised my voice of it. I will tell you I did. I said, this is not a drill. This is serious. It's on the ground. It's big. If you know friends and family members, wake them up. And what I will always say, and I urge anyone that hasn't said it to say it, is call your friends, call your family, wake them up. And I always go street to street when I know there's a tornado on the ground and rattle, 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 because I think it's so important to keep the viewers safe. And they know if they hear their street, it's time to go and it's time to go fast. So this is happening around 1 a.m. I mean, it's, right over downtown Nashville. It's seen, it's spotted, and then it goes to the radar. So it's so hard to find. Like the greens and reds, we're trying to show people the velocity product, where the wind is going to the radar, where the wind's going away. But all we can do is find the hook because it goes through the radar and kind of gets hidden for a second. And then around, say, 1:30, it's still going. Now it's going so it went from basically West Nashville. We heard of reports of planes destroyed at the John C. Toon Airport, which is a private plane thing. So we knew something bad. Then North Nashville got hit. Then it was Donaldson, Hermitage, and then it went to Mount Juliet, which are all really big cities, like populated towns that, if you aren't familiar with Middle Tennessee, and as we know this on the ground. So we're, telling people it's on the ground, it's on the ground, it's on the ground, it's on the ground. And then it lifts around Smith County, I believe. And then what's scary is, okay, we know that this is a big situation. At this point, I think there was another meteorologist that joined me. My morning anchor came in because he knew it was bad and started joining us. We had reporters coming in. Everyone was coming in. And so at this point, now we know there's damage. We're getting reporters on the scene. And so I'm throwing, once the tornado warning comes down, I'm saying, okay, now I'll let them show the damage for a bit. But I told my anchor, I'm like, if I start putting my hand up or say I need to get on, we need to get back on. And that was really important to me because I knew we weren't done with this yet. It still had to go over the plateau. So around this time, this is around 2 a.m., Jackson, Smith, Trousdale, Wilson County, it turns into a severe storm. But really, once again, this same supercell is cycling again. And so then after this, it turns into a tornado warning. I was watching it. And before the tornado warning actually starts, I said to my anchor, can you get me back on the air? I'm really worried about Cookeville. It's coming to Cookeville and it looks like it's about to change. And it looks like it's about to drop down again. So sure enough, and their signatures, we're finding that, the debris correlation coefficient, we saw some debris ball from it. So we knew stuff was happening. So we get on the air with this, we're in it for Cookeville, we're in it. And really, we don't come off the air for Cookeville, I don't believe, until at least 2:33 a.m. Because that tornado warning happened and there was multiple ones. Luckily, I feel like right as it's about to go to downtown Cookeville, another tornado formed south of it and took its energy. So that was one thing that I think I'm so thankful for. because that was an EF4, the one that was going towards downtown Cookeville. And I'm glad it didn't hit the actual city. It hit, unfortunately, hit neighborhoods and stuff, but it's something that we were watching. So again, these tornado warnings continue, and they continue until 4:15 in the morning. Okay. But here's the thing. We're not just on until 4:15 in the morning. Our station stays on the entire next day. So we were basically on the air from, I was on the air. Technically, I started at 4 o'clock. People saw me the night before, but we were on the air until 10:30 in the morning, 10:30 at night the next day. So we stayed on the air continuously. And you notice that 4:15 is the last severe warning we have. Okay. And then people are still afraid because there's still storms happening. So we're on Facebook Live with it. I stay at work, I believe, until 8 a.m. or so. And then my boss comes and says, Danielle, you really need to go home because I need you back here to cover the tornado damage. So I went home. At this point, I knew things were bad. We'd already heard that some people may have been killed. And I don't know about any of you, but if you're a broadcast man on this, you are so worked up after all of this. I mean, I am. I'm like high intensity. Probably I've had like 2 or 3 Red Bulls at this point too. So that's another thing. So I went home. I think people in whoever lives in my building was probably like, what is going on with her? I'm on the treadmill because I'm like, I can't sleep. And I cried and ran 3.5 miles very fast and cried the entire time because I thought about the viewers like that didn't make it. And what did I do wrong to not have them make it? It's still very, I like when I was practicing this yesterday, I got a little choked up on that because that's something that is super, super serious for me. Just so you guys know, before I keep going with this, the reason, I take this tornado warning so seriously and I'm so invested and so involved. And if it's happening, I stay with it the entire night and into the next day. I never leave, is because I worked in Oklahoma City on May 10th, 2010, which is one of the worst outbreaks they've ever had. I was on the air. I was the 3rd meteorologist, but then I went out to the scene and people told me like how important it was. They lost everything, but they were in that one corner of their house that was still standing and they survived. And I just remember thinking like meteorologists really do save lives. And I'm going to remember that when I one day become a chief, and I'm going to never leave. And I'm going to be there until the threat is gone. I'm going to set it up well, and I'm going to continue to cover it after the threat is gone. And so that's really important. And you'll notice if you ever see me cover stuff, I have a real deep passion for it. And so, this is pretty emotional for me. And then, this is the first picture we got, the first live picture out of Nashville. And it's hard to see. This is at night. This is still like 4 a.m. and we see that. And that's from the Red Cross because one of my friends of the Red Cross sent it to me. And you just see damage and it's going to be bad. And so then that day I came right back to work and I went out, and this is like me meeting some people that said like, we saved your life. We were watching your coverage, and we went out and started, telling people stories out in the field. Like, where were you? How'd you do? And we were I went into Donaldson that day and I was there through, the 10:30 hour out live with people, but it was really nice. I had, people saw that people went after me so hard, and especially some famous people that actually have, a real following went after me so hard. And one viewer actually screenshotted some things that said, just let me go ahead and get this off my chest right now. This is disgusting. A meteorologist, you attacked her on Instagram for a Bachelor, a stupid show. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Homes are destroyed. People have died. This behavior is not okay. And I will tell you that that next day was a totally different thing. So I'm gone from the most hated person at night, going through tornadoes, exhausted, amped up, emotional, sad, and then seeing really, really nice things and seeing how the way viewers really, really responded. And I'm so thankful for the nice viewers and for the people that write nice comments. It also, just so you know, if you're a viewer out there watching this, you make us meteorologists feel like we did our job when you write nice things to us. So this one girl wrote me, it was really sweet. She goes, this girl's been on since 4 p.m. yesterday and it's now nighttime the next day. Seriously, thank you for all you've been doing to warn people. And then somebody else wrote, literally disgusted by all the hate comments on Danielle Breezy, all because you missed The Bachelor. She was doing her job, trying to help people, and you guys are pissed because you can't watch a reality show. Can't even fathom this. I'm discussing this world we live in today is bad. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. Saying it now. It was nowhere near Nashville. It wiped out all of East Nashville, 19 fatalities. So tell me how The Bachelor is more important. Ran over. And then somebody said a very special shout out for Daniel Breezy, feeling lucky and thankful. Nike and I are alive, and same to all my friends in the city. So, these kind of things, it makes me, feel great. And I think it makes all of us broadcast Mets feel like we did our job well. And just so you guys know, the way I feel about my job is not only when I'm broadcasting through the storm and thereafter, my job continues, especially being that I am the chief meteorologist. I want to go out and meet the people and talk to people. So the next several days after, we went to every community and I went out and talked to viewers and told their stories. So I was in North Nashville, I was in Hermitage, I was at TSU, and then I ended up going out to Cookeville as well. And I'll talk about that. But basically, just to wrap this up in terms of the statistics of that night, there were 10 tornadoes that touched down in Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky. We had several EF2s. You see that there was 4 EF2s, 1 EF3, and 1 EF4, which is the one in Cookeville. To let you know, there were 25 people, unfortunately, that lost their lives. There were hundreds of people injured. The EF3 in Nashville tornado has a path length of 60.13 miles. That was the second longest path length in Middle Tennessee history and one of the longest path lengths in the Tennessee state history. This tornado hit 12:32 to 1:35 in the morning. Then we had the EF4 tornado in Putnam County. This one was the worst on record for that county. It hit between 1:48 and 1:56. By the way, we don't get that many large tornadoes in Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky as much. The last EF4 before that was actually April 10th, 2009, which was the Murfreesboro tornado, which everyone remembers because it was on Good Friday and everyone could see it. So, those are some blazing statistics of just how bad this event was. And it was one of the costliest, I think, for us. It's just one of the worst events that ever happened in Middle Tennessee. And people also said, because we had the 1998 tornadoes where Nashville actually got hit by one, they said, oh, it'll never hit Nashville again. Well, it definitely did. And this is what an EF3 tornado looks like, the damage. This is courtesy of the National Weather Service in Nashville. They took some pictures out there. And it was not good. This is an area that people go out in, people live in. I remember at one point during it, I was saying, I'm calling my friend right now. You need to call your friends. Call my friend. I'm like, okay, she's in the basement with her kids. She's good. But this was a really, really, really bad night. And then at EF4, this is what the Cookeville tornado looked like. Unfortunately, it hit a neighborhood, right, direct hit on them. It was not pretty. It was not good. So we went out there the following Monday and I stayed out there early in the day because I wanted to meet some of the heroes of the storms. And we ended up putting together a 30-minute special called The Heroes of the Storm. And we interviewed the first responders, the police chief, the fire chief, all of them that actually told us stories of what they did and how they helped these people, that were injured, that were hurt, that were trapped in their houses. Think about it. It was just such a wild night because once it hits, there's no power. They're trying to get people out. It was just a wild, wild night. So these folks are the heroes. We did a special. It got nominated for an Emmy too. So that was pretty neat to see. And we continue to follow up with the survivors and do special coverage at each anniversary. I know during it, we did a blood drive, which I donate blood. And I think, that's a great way to do something to help out. But a year later, we stood in front of it and talked about it. If you remember 2020, March 2nd, 3rd, 2020, that was also right before COVID. So right after all this stuff happened, then we have the COVID thing happen, which is not great. And a lot of these, just for perspective, a lot of these tornado survivors didn't have their homes. So they got locked up in hotel rooms while their homes were getting remodeled and redone. These two couples here were actually neighbors in a Mount Juliet neighborhood. They didn't know each other well. They said before this, they would just wave each other. Well, one of the neighbors wrote me and said, we all watched you. This was a year later. They told me they were waiting to write us, but they watched us. They became good friends with their neighbors because they got stuck in hotels together during COVID. They played cards. And now that their homes are rebuilt, they play cards every week together and they've become the best of friends. And I thought this was such a cool story. I went out, interviewed them, and talk to them about what they do. And this is something as a broadcast Met you can do. Follow up on those emails that they write you, get them to, give you a proof, get them to talk about you on it. And you can use that into a special or a promotional campaign. But this was just a special story I did on them and it was awesome. And it was for our Severe Weather Safety Day because we usually do one of those every spring before severe weather starts. And then we also did a special 1-hour show the year later. And I hosted it along with Neil Orn, which was my morning anchor that rushed in with me, and Mike Keith, who's the voice of the Titans. And we raised a lot of money for those in need and really for the American Red Cross. So, you know, I will tell you, even though that night gives me a lot of PTSD because of all the not nice things I saw, and especially when I go back and had to do this presentation, the one thing I will say is the kind words continue not only days, but weeks, but months, but even years later. And I've gotten such nice things that people have said to me. Somebody wrote an actual article about me, like local opinion, your favorite TV show isn't important as your safety. Some lady wrote, like this was a year or two later, going on the record saying that the Meteorologist Channel 2, a woman saved so many lives. That's the light. I've never seen anyone in the position on air screaming for people to call their friends and family and wake them up. I woke so many of my friends and family, as I'm sure many of you did. This is, we are Nashville strong. Then, you know, this is a great story too. I was at a brunch with my husband and I went to get the bill, and the waiter said, "Oh, that don't worry, somebody already took care of it. They actually wanted to leave you this note." And I said, "Oh, are they here still?" And they're like, "No, they already left. They didn't really want to bother you." And they wrote me, "We didn't want to bother you during your meal, but we wanted to thank you. You're the reason we're here today, getting to enjoy a meal with our pups. March 3rd would have looked a lot different for us if we didn't have your guidance that night. You have a special place in your heart." And that, I'm going to get choked up. Those are the things that matter. So this is a night that I think even meteorologists, you know, I know everybody, I can't even imagine what it's like to lose your house, to lose a family member, to lose a friend. But I just think that, you know, this is something that has meant so much for me. And I want to end on this, get my, not choke up so much, but remember that we do save lives, and no TV show is that important. And this is just some of the folks, unfortunately, that lost their lives. So with that, I wanted to say you guys can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Feel free to reach out to me. I appreciate all of you listening. Hopefully you've learned something from me. And I don't know if you guys have any questions, but just so you know, this meteorologist, this is a big deal to us, and we really do care. And so when you do say remember, we're still people. And so when you do say really not nice things to us, it does hurt. It doesn't make us feel good. But we also love the great things that people say. So.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for that presentation. You know, you got me thinking, and I knew I've shared this story personally with you, but even with the outbreak that just happened at the end of March and April, I have family that lives in Middle Tennessee, and they were glued to News 2, and they were watching you, and they ended up having it to get into their safe places at, I think it was like 12:30 in the morning, and had you on their phones waiting for the all clear to know that the tornado had passed through them. And the tornado actually did pass about half a mile from where they live. So, you know, it's important. I mean, they've been watching you. I think you went on air at 9 about some of those storms with that event, and we're on air or at the station until I think at least 5. So it was another one of those long days. And you know, so I know, and I've passed this along to you, that my family is very grateful for what you and your team did that night. We've got some amazing questions, and I'm gonna actually start here, because this is something that actually 2 of the participants today kind of brought up. They, you know, one mentioned, you know, you got on your treadmill and you had a really good cry. But are there other methods that you use to decompress and you know, cope with these events? Because you know, it really is hard to unwind after something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I think after an event like that, it's really hard to just, you know, you've been up all night, and you want to go to sleep, but you're so ramped up, it's hard to do. But I will tell you, make sure you take time for yourself. I actually did talk to a therapist after it for a little bit, and I will be honest with that. I think it's good to sometimes talk to someone about things if you feel like it was a really stressful type of situation. I just think doing something for yourself is so important after those events. Now, I know that after that event, I mean, it was like 2 weeks straight of stuff. So it was pretty intense for 2 weeks. And then the COVID thing happened. But I mean, it was, you know, I think that's why I think I still have emotions towards the whole thing. But I think, you know, running for me is a de-stressor. Meditation is really good. Sometimes I'll just like meditate for a little. I think you need to make sure you give yourself grace and allowance, and, you know, and it's okay to be like, it's okay to not feel okay all the time about stuff. because I don't, it's not always nice, but I will tell you as a meteorologist on television, one thing that someone told me when I got in this business, they said, you better have thick skin. And I didn't realize how thick my skin really had to be. Really, I would say, I mean, I've also had stuff, everybody gets comments from here and there, but that night I really had to have real thick skin. So I would tell you, if you're in the middle of an event, don't look at anything, just concentrate on the event. You can look at it later and deal with it later, that too.
You're talking about the event and being in it, and there's a lot of questions that actually come from that. One of them was, how many folks do you have on staff that are helping support you during these events? Do you have someone monitoring social media, or do you have someone focused on radar or NWS chat?
So yeah, so how we usually do it is I usually have at least one other person with me during those events, and what I think I had Davis Nolan, and then I had my former weekend morning person, Mary Mays, come in, and they tagged each other out basically, because I think my morning person at the time was away or something. So, they're with me and we kind of do it together. So, and one of the things is Davis Nolan's a person that's worked at my station now for over 40 years. We call him Uncle Davis. He's very, all my Mets, I would say, are very good with the radar. So we will both be looking at the radar. We usually have the chat, like one Met sits by the chat with the, Max 2 is what we call it. And then I have Max 1. So we use IBM software, but I have a computer station right by the green screen. So I'll run back and forth. You ever see me running off air, kind of looking at things and running back on air. But one of the things I was taught as a broadcaster is to try to be on TV as much as possible, and so I will try to come in because people want to see your face and know, you mean business when you mean business. So I'll do that. And then usually my second person will monitor chat and also come in and help me when I need a quick breather, or I want to kind of look at something. What are you seeing? Tell me. Then we kind of go back and forth. We kind of have a dialogue the entire time. And then I will say our digital team, so they will share all of our stuff on like our main Facebook page and stream it on our website. So, obviously the W Karen weather app that we have, that gets streamed there. They put a push notification out about it. They put it on our Facebook. They put it on, our website. And so that's important too, because I always say, if you lose power, you need this in order to know where the tornado is going to go. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what I do. We usually have kind of an all hands on deck type of approach when bad weather like this happens.
So one of our other viewers wanted to know, as you go back and you kind of look at this event, what is it that you could say you've learned that's made you better about covering, these warnings, going on air, so that you feel like you're better ready. You're ready to take on the event, the severity of the event, and then the possible fallout from that event.
I think because this event was so unique in terms of, this event was not as, the day of, we did not realize how bad this event was going to be, if that makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, the Storm Prediction Center only had us under a level 2 out of 5. So what I learned from this event is it doesn't matter what risk you're under, right? And I try to say this to viewers all the time. If you're under a risk, it doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have to be prepared, right? So that's number one. But number two is I would say that tornadoes will happen when they're going to happen. And, I'm not God. I can't tell you where I think it's going to happen, what exact time I think it's going to happen. But what I can do is as soon as I think something's happening, I can be stressful about it and intense about it. And this event taught me to really get intense. And I don't think I've ever been that passionate, before. I mean, I was passionate, but that was a very passionate where I was literally in my mind and in my heart scared for people. And so I try to come across like that. And I think people saw that. And I think that's something that I took away from this event that I do now every event. Like I come across, like I make sure that they know that this is real. Like, especially when I know it's really happening, I'm like, no, this is happening. It's time. Like I'm going street to street. When I go street to street, I start saying your name, you got 1 minute. And like, I rattle. Like I don't let up on the, I'm all gas, no brakes. And I think that intensity tells people, okay, she means business. I've got to do that. And I hope that eventually saves lives, because like this last event, March 31st and 1st, we had EF3 tornadoes, in our area. And we are very lucky, knock on wood, no one in our viewing area died. And I think it's because we were intense. And, you know, as a broadcaster, as long as you're intense and you tell them, people said like, oh, I felt it. I got up with you. You know, and there were a lot of houses that were destroyed and they were like safe because they were in the basement or the lowest level and they were good. So I think that that's something I definitely learned from this event. You always have to be prepared, no matter what risk you're under, be prepared that it could become an event. That's another thing.
Awesome. Now you've got someone from Cookville who's actually viewing, and they had a question about what time did that storm become tornado warned? They weren't 100% sure on that, but they did want to also pass along, thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, that's very nice. I think that one came across, it was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like 140, because I think it touched down, technically the touchdown. I mean, it was a pretty quick like turn of events of like they hit it and then we're like, uh-oh, I think something's really on the air, you know, like really on the ground. So I think it was 141 to 156, I want to say. But then there were a few others right after that were in the 2 o'clock range. Because the big one though was, I think, right before 2 a.m. basically.
So, and then this kind of goes back to one of the questions that I had, but a viewer was asking, when you first went on the air, were the cities and counties that were first warned on when you first went on, they were within the viewing area. And I think this kind of brought up one of the questions that I have. How common is it to actually cover 49 counties and 2 states? Like when you're talking about the viewing area that you have, you know, because I know you've worked in different markets, like how is that abnormal to have a viewing area that's large, or is that a common thing?
Well, I think that like the amount of counties is a lot. That I will say. And it is interesting. I think this is the first market that I've worked where it's very Splitsville in terms of, you know, there's the National Weather Service office that covers, we have 5 different coverages, you know what I mean? So that to me is very unique and very diverse, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I do think it's interesting. I mean, we actually, because of that, because people didn't like, because of the Kentucky thing and people being like, why are you on for Kentucky? Which we do count. We now have a actual commercial that runs that says, I cover all 49 counties in Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky. We literally did that so people understand that that is part of our viewing area. And if you live in those areas, you want to know if there's a tornado too. And I think because of this night, it was so interesting because there was one supercell up there that developed that created those tornadoes in Kentucky. And then there was a secondary one that created, you know, later in Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee middle, you know what I mean? I think that night kind of people realized, oh, okay. So that was, in a way, I think Kentucky kind of warned people like this could actually happen down in our area. Like this is bad. So yeah, it is interesting because I've worked in, I mean, Dallas, I feel like it was the same amount, like the same office and all was in Texas. Oklahoma was all Oklahoma when I worked. I'm thinking about Salisbury, Maryland. No, I did cover something in Virginia and also in Maryland and Delaware. And in Boston, they do have a little bit of Connecticut, I think. But yeah, it is weird. It's a big amount of coverage area.
All right, Danielle, and we're gonna close with, I think this, oh, wait a minute. Let me see. Got a couple of questions about, and it's actually, and it's kind of tied, they kind of tie together. One of them was, do you have any advice for meteorologists in dealing with the social media haters? And another one, once again, thank you so much for everything that you do. And they remember seeing the social media post that day and the night and seeing you post, and would like to know, you know, what would you recommend to broadcast meteorologists when severe outbreaks are ongoing and how to keep up with their energy?
So yeah, so what I would tell you is with social media, it's a hard game, you know. Even when I started in this business, there wasn't really social media in the beginning of it, which is crazy because I've been in TV now for almost 20 years. So dealing with it, it's like learning how to do it. I think social media is a great thing. There's a great tool with it because, you know, when you do these Facebook lives or you do an Instagram live, you can really connect with your viewers and talk to them like one-on-one, you know. And when I do it, I like take my cell phone, I go like this, I make it very personal, because I don't want it to look like TV. I want it to be like, you're behind the scenes with me, let's just chat and have a conversation. But I do think there is this element of social media where you have these people behind keyboards that can just say whatever they want. And I think there's no There's no, there's no there's no need. They could say a nasty thing. They can do whatever they want and no big deal. What they don't realize, and I think people don't realize, I'm like, when you email me at dbreezy@wkron.com, who do you think that's getting that message? It's me. I'm getting it. So I see when you're saying something mean about me. Now I will tell you, and what I've said in talks before, because I do a lot of talks about social media, I do think you can turn a lot of trolls into fans very quickly or friends, because some people that are nasty actually just want attention. And if you say to them like, oh, sorry you felt that way, like, look at me the next day, I promise it'll be different or whatever, then they write back, oh my God, I didn't know you would even respond, blah, 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 you're awesome. And then I think that's all they really want. Now, there are some people that were just nasty, and there's nothing you can really do about it. But I will tell you, the biggest advice is, if these people take the time to write you really nice things, write them back, because I think that's so special. Like, I think that that's how you develop a true bond with people too. So that would be my advice in terms of that. Now, in terms of severe weather, like getting the energy, definitely be prepared for it. Like, get your mindset for it that day. You know what I mean? You want to be ready to go. I usually go for a run before it. I pack my waters, I pack my food, I pack energy drinks. But just remember, when you're in it, I think the thing is, you don't even realize. Sometimes people will come to me, like one of the events we had, which I'll be talking about, I think at the broadcast conference. It was December 10th and 11th, 2021. We had tornadoes in Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky overnight. That's when the one went through Mayfield, if folks remember that. I was on air all night into the next day, and my boss came over and he's like, can you stay on till 10 a.m.? And I said, what time is it? He's like, oh, it's 8 a.m. I'm like, oh my God, like, you have no clue the timing it is, because you're just in the thick of it and you're just concentrating on getting the message across. So I think when you get into one of these events, you just kind of go with it, and you will do it, and you will rise to the occasion, because this is an event. I call this like the Super Bowl of meteorology, but this is really it for us. It's like, when you can really save someone's life, it's really important.
Wow, Danielle, you have given a lot of people, we've had some, comments that we'll definitely share with you from other broadcast meteorologists that have been on, telling you that you've represented the community very well with what you've presented here today. I can't thank you enough for, again, offering your time to the AMS weather band community to come on and talk about this particular event. Is there anything else you'd like to close with before we toss it back over to Gideon?
The only thing I was going to say is, you can reach out to me I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Be sure to follow, reach out to me. If you need any help or advice, happy to help you, especially meteorologists that maybe are young and up and coming. I know that I had a lot of meteorologists that are older than me that took me under their wing. I just want to know that they're there for you. And then my, fans or viewers that are watching this, I appreciate all of you. And, I love our banter, and keep it coming.
All right. Thanks, Danielle. Gideon, if you would like to close us out.
All righty. Thank you so much, Melissa, and Danielle. Thank you so much for that presentation. Really, it was amazing. I was drawn in to the experience. I actually found myself like side-eyeing my emergency radio here, wondering if it was charged up, because yeah, that was incredible. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing that experience with our viewers. I think we got a lot out of that. But yes, folks, all webinars will be available to other band members at amsweatherband.org. If you have any further questions, or if you want to talk about the webinar, members are always welcome to discuss on the Weatherband Community Forum. And with that being said, actually, let me just put something here on chat if you wanted to find out a little bit more information about our webinars. Let's see. Hang on. There we go. Share that out. Yes, but with that being said, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And again, once more, thank you so much, Danielle, for sharing, and for Melissa for moderating this webinar. But yeah, have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care, and goodbye.
Bye.